Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video, and today I'm doing a video on my thoughts on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I'm finally getting around to reviewing this. If I sound as though I don't really know what every element of the film, it's predominantly because it's been quite a few weeks and or maybe even a month or so since I last watched the film, and so for the purposes of this video I unfortunately didn't get around to watching it for the video, what else? It's also quite a long film, so there is quite a lot to unpack, which, depending on your personal preference, is a pro or a negative, and that. So yeah, it's an animated film. It's a superhero film, but it's also kind of like an Avengers film in so much as there's not just one Spider-Man. It's a multitude or the multiverse of Spider-Man and or Spider People, and that. So which I think's really unique for the film, but it's phenomenal and insane to think that there's lots of plates spinning, and yet it somehow juggles all these different elements or has all these plates spinning and not one of them really falls, for me anyway. I know there is a YouTube video out there recently that's like, oh, I don't like Spider-Verse, and it's like, well, okay, you know, it might not be for everyone. I just think the sort of art style as well is just absolutely gorgeous and phenomenal, and it really does look like a blend of something like Borderlands, like the cell shaded like graphics, but with also the sort of vibrant and sort of comic book art style come to life. Like really does look like as I say, a comic book come to life, but they also know the media they're in as well very, very well, in so much as it is quite slapstick and humorous in places, but also just visually interesting and striking. Like, an example of what I'm trying to get at is basically there's a part in the film where one of the characters is talking to Miles Morales, and they're both just talking about this whilst climbing up on the side of buildings, and it's just like, you know, the most boring, mundane sort of exposition becomes way more visually, you know, sort of interesting and striking when setting it against something that's not so normal, you know, like me or you can't do that, so, you know, so it's not just a boring sort of reverse shot sort of scenario, you know, sort of thing. Yeah, so as I say, they know the fact that, you know, in animation they can do different things like that, or just, you know, sort of just different things in that medium, and that, you know, like one of the versions of Spider-Man in this film is quite a cartoony character, you know, Spider-Ham, and so he does literally have cartoony characteristics, but it still works because it is an animated film, and it doesn't feel too jarring, I guess. What else? Yeah, I really like the sort of Peter Parker guy who's played by Nick Miller from New Girl, the guy who plays Nick Miller from that show. I watched this film originally with my older brother, and it came out sort of in cinema latter end of 2018, I want to say. So yeah, this also includes like a little Spider-Ham mini thing, as well as a bunch of special features, which is awesome. I really like the actress and or person who plays Spider-Gwen as well. She's pretty cool. I love the subtle details of this film in so much as like the part where Spider-Man is him and Miles Morales are webbing the trees and that in that part of the film. Apparently the frames per second is actually slowed down for Miles Morales and is faster for Peter Parker, just showing the subtle details and the lengths that the animators went to animate, like the sort of way that each of the characters was moving, in so much as that it still shows that Miles Morales is, learning and is on his way, or still on his journey, sort of thing. I don't know if as that happens they actually speed it up, but either way they basically did that so there was like a difference, so it did feel like it was slower for Miles Morales to be able to do that, like slower movement, whereas the older Peter Parker was just sort of, old lazy Peter Parker as I like to call him, was moving at a quicker pace because he's more experienced, and it really just sort of shows an understanding of the characters and the lengths that the people behind the scenes went to make the film really as authentic and interesting and sort of, Spider-Man, esque as possible, really. Spoiler alert, but one of the bad guys does get changed, gender-wise, and I think it actually kind of works. I'm not 100% sure if in the comic books Doc Ock and our Dr. Octavius is ever a woman, but here it actually really worked, and I didn't find it jarring or like it was shoehorned in for the sake of it, and it just seemed kind of natural that the story would have this female bad guy and that, bad sort of character, and that, and Kingpin is the main sort of bad guy and that, but then there's another character who's a bad guy who, it gets revealed who he is and that was quite a shocking moment, and yeah, it was insane, this film. It was, the music is quite pop music-y sort of stuff, but it suits this sort of world where Miles is this sort of teenager-y kid. It had me choking up at the part where it was like, we are all Spider-Man. I was like, oh god, we really are. I'm just like, welling up sort of thing. I was a blubbering mess at that part. But yeah, it felt really sort of, I don't know, like, unique and special but different as well. Yeah, like, I don't know, it's weird. It just sort of works, and that I honestly don't really wish. I hope they don't do a sequel to it. And that I'm kind of annoyed that apparently it got less money at the box office than the new Lion King. And it's like, well, no wonder people don't really do anything too experimental or outside the box when it's not very financially viable, whereas like something that you have seen 1,000 times already, people know what they're getting, so they are probably more sort of likely to spend the money. But even then, everyone that I've sort of heard things say about Lion King is that it was just sort of okay, or just not as good as the original, and that they really didn't like it. But so yeah, it's okay to really crap. So it's like, or really crap to okay, and it's like, okay, so you could have seen this when this came out, but people just didn't, and I think maybe it's because of the animation stuff, because in the West, animation is still very much highly regarded as a kids thing, and that opposed to the live action Spider-Man films, I would hope, did kind of better than this. But yeah, I like the fact that there are lots of different Spider-Man people, because it means that we have like lots of different perspectives on stuff and lots of things to offer, and they all have their own unique sort of backstories and characteristics and that, and I love the introductions to all the different characters. It's very similar, but it's done different enough that it is still interesting. I love the Stan Lee cameo. That was pretty intense. Yeah, there's just so much that is just really good about this film. I do like it a lot. I can't really think off the top of my head any real criticisms, I guess. It's just a really fun watch, or at least I thought it was. I know there is one person that I know that doesn't particularly like it, and I'm not even on about the person who I mentioned earlier in the video about, like, that YouTuber person who made a video. But yeah, I think it's a good film. It really sort of showcases what's sort of really good about the character of Spider-Man. You know, like, he is this sort of ordinary person, but, you know, he always gets knocked down, but he always gets back up. You know, it's you know, he always tries to be the best person that he can be, but sometimes fails, but learns from that, I guess. There's a level of humility to his character, I think. And I don't know, and I like the interactions between Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen and that. I think either her or maybe the old man Lizzie, Peter Parker, are probably the other two most developed sort of spider people other than Miles Morales, who is the main character. And that there is quite a few different baddies as well, which, you know, people will have mixed feelings about, I guess, considering that has often been a big problem in a lot of other Spider-Man films. So yeah, I just highly recommend anyone pick this film up, even if you're not that much of a Spider-Man fan. For example, even my mum liked this film, and she really doesn't like Spider-Man all too much for whatever reason, and even she enjoyed it. So, you know, even if you're not a massive fan, pardon me, of Spider-Man, then, you know, you might like it for the animation or some of the jokes, or, you know, or the Easter eggs as well. If you're a huge Spider-Man fan, there are lots of little Easter eggs here and there and stuff. So there's something for the diehards as well as the casuals and everyone in between, I think. So yeah, thanks for watching. Comment, rate and subscribe.